on now to, yes, you can see this. We're moving on now to Julie. I'm going to hand over to Suzanne, who's going to introduce Julie for us. Thank you.
So Julie has stepped in at the last minute to replace the speaker who was coming, and we're very grateful to Julie for doing that. So we're certainly not losing out by changing the speaker, I can tell you, when as you'll see when I read this out. Julie Lyford is the inaugural Chair of Women's Environmental Leadership Australia WELA, and last year for the Women Taking Climate Action Award, we had somebody who was doing a leadership course from WELA apply for the award, and that's how we came across it. And this is an organisation we need to be aware of. So Julie brings over a decade of experience in a not-for-profit environmental leadership to the role, and that's just so important. As Chair of Groundswell Gloucester, I hope I said that right, Julie. Julie was involved in leading the successful campaigns to stop the AGL coal seam gas field and open cut coal mine from going ahead in the Gloucester and Manning Valley catchments in New South Wales. So wow, it's a pretty spectacular effort. Julie is a former councillor and mayor of Gloucestershire Council, a former registered nurse, an experienced board member and a WELA alumni. So I think it's also really interesting that Julie has been involved at local council level, and it's quite often quite difficult for us to work out who you talk to in local council about issues and what they can actually do. So to have somebody like that maybe in the future we can say, Julie, can you tell us something, would be really great too. So I'll hand over to Julie.
Thanks, Sue. I'm still a little overwhelmed by the crypto, metaverse, thinking there's something I need to learn from this, especially with fundraising. Wow. Yeah, that was fascinating. So, yeah, and look, and deepest apologies from Lou. I'm not quite sure what has happened there, but Lou's very dedicated to doing wonderful things like this. So I'm sure that Lou would love to actually chat with you about what she does with WELA and other things as well. Basically, do you know anything about WELA at all? Would you like me to start with talking about WELA? Or
yeah, start with WELA and explaining it would be great.
Okay, so it was, well, WELA, and now we're a company limited by guarantee as of last December. It was founded in 2016 as an annual development program for women in the environment movement. And I got involved in the 2017 cohort when, I'm not sure if anybody knows Margaret Blakers, who is pretty instrumental in the Greens and founded quite a few things. Was also very involved with forestry campaigns, etc. But Marg rang me up one day and said, you don't know me and I've never met you, but I'd like you to do the WELA course. My response was, this is odd. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time. I'm right in the middle of a campaign to stop a coal mine off the back of stopping coal seam gas field. And she said, all the more reason that you need to do the course. We want you to come down and meet with us. So I still resisted, went to Sydney to find out what it was all about, was convinced to sort of do the course, and to be really frank with you, it completely sort of changed the way I did things. And the crux of it all was that until we learn to stop and rest and know who we are and own our power and own our skills and get rid of the imposter syndrome and understand, which I kind of had known from all of the organisations I'd worked with, but there is this incredible network of women out there who are working collaboratively, and there is no ego involved. We learn from each other. It's like this ever-expanding sponge. I know that sounds very touchy-feely, but it actually was instrumental in the way that I then led and was part of a team. Everything is teamwork. Nothing is done as an individual. it changed the way we did things, and we really focused on the fact that we had the power as a community with our experience and expertise to actually take the government and the companies to court and win. And since then, I've been championing WELA, and WELA alumni and lots of people involved with WELA have been involved in Sustainable Futures conventions that we've run in Gloucester, including the wonderful Millie Rooney, who is part of ReMADE, Australia ReMADE, which is another amazing program. And we ran our last 2019 Sustainable Futures in Gloucester based around the 9 principles of Australia ReMADE. And also the entire theme of the conference was based on First Nations peoples and Uluru Statement of the Heart, etc., which is part of the Australia ReMADE. It's the first pillar of Australia ReMADE's manifesto, basically. So WELA has been operating the annual program since 2016, and they consist of three weeks of, with COVID, that obviously became an issue, but you actually go to Common Ground. I'm not sure if everybody knows about Common Ground. It's in Victoria. It's a gorgeous mud brick, purpose-built place with rooms and meeting rooms, etc., community garden set up for activist organisations that need places to go, and the whole ambience and aesthetics of where you meet sort of contributes to that. And you spend 3 separate weeks together as a group, learning from each other. The first day is quite tricky, or the first couple of days, because you learn about the imposter syndrome. And my goodness, most of us have it in spades, and it's a really fascinating lesson to sort of go through getting rid of that imposter syndrome so you can be a more effective leader. And women, seems that men don't have imposter syndrome, but women have it in spades. So it probably is trivializing the program a little if I'm talking like this, but I think what's really powerful about the program is it creates change, and it creates change within the people, the women that are stepping up into those leadership roles. So a lot of Indigenous content, a lot of First Nations women are involved. There's a First Nations scholarship. There was in our cohort, we had someone from East Timor who'd been through the terrible times in East Timor, and she was really, really focused on environmental and social justice issues in East Timor. So there's a broad breadth of women that get to do the course and apply for the course, lots of NGOs. And also it's really important that women from corporate life understand and take part with what we're doing. And how yesterday I spoke to a researcher from the University of Adelaide who works in research at the interface between communities and corporates who want to actually come in and do fossil fuel extraction, etc. And we had a fantastic 30-minute chat. Without WELA, I probably wouldn't have even thought of talking to someone like that, because it would be, in my mind, it would have been compartmentalized to be, you know, the enemy, so to speak. Whereas no one's the enemy. Everybody's trying to work for the outcomes that they're involved in. And we all need to talk to each other at all levels in whatever we're doing. She was a little shocked, though, when I said, there is a point where communities say, no, we don't want to engage into that process. We're not interested in having that in our community, so we will not actually take part in that interface. And she hadn't quite heard that before. So, yeah, I'm probably digressing a little. The importance of the program is that there are women out there. The networking is huge. Part of the work that I'm doing with our now Gloucester Transitions group is we've developed an interactive website that hasn't gone live yet, where it's pulling together all of the networks of grassroots communities. We have the networks of NGOs, we have the networks of the corporates, but we don't have the networks of the grassroots NGOs. And often when people think that they're alone, they're fighting a fight that they're involved in, and nobody understands the weight of it and what's involved, if we can show that across Australia, and there are hundreds and hundreds of grassroots organisations working to protect their places and spaces, especially in the climate space. Add to that the Strike for Climate groups, add to that all of the community garden groups, add to that the land care groups, and all of the people working in their own way to protect environments and look at climate issues. It's massive, it's huge, and it's so exciting to kind of be involved in that work. Then that idea came out of workshops while I was with WELA. And so a couple of WELA alumni and I, and somebody who I met on the Guardian Australia Facebook page and threw the idea out to, she's actually created the website. And so I just get really excited about the networking. I think that is probably the most amazing thing, the power that women have at the moment, leadership-wise, let alone the election, which was very exciting, is phenomenal. And now I've read about your group, which is fabulous, the work that you're doing, how we all connect together and enable more women to do programs like WELA so that they can continue to reach the goals that they want to and beyond, because often you don't see the doors that you're going to go through because you haven't actually come to that door yet. Yeah. And we're growing as a group. We're growing as a board. We're looking for a couple of new board members as well, especially with fundraising experience. Our company secretary has just got a full-time job, which is really exciting, which means we're looking now for someone with that experience as well, although some of us will tide that over while we're doing that. We're looking for significant funds to go forward because it's not enough just to have those three, that yearly annual program. So Victoria Mackenzie-McCarr, our strategic director, who came up with the idea of actually forming WELA into a company limited by guarantee. Very exciting young woman, very amazing aptitude and future thinking. She's just incredible. That there'll be weekend programs. So already one has been run in Queensland, which was extremely successful. So we're trying to grow, but in a sustainable way, but also make sure that we have the capacity, and that all sort of relates back to funding and capacity of skills. Yeah, so that's the other exciting part of the program, where we're going to go from here. And it's incredibly inclusive, as I said before, of all cultures. It's, you know, not gender biased. It's, yeah, I feel really lucky to, have been tapped on the shoulder by an anonymous phone call from Margaret Blakers. And probably I need to let you know that, so how did I get to be asked by Victoria to come in as chair? So are there any questions before I sort of carry on? I realise I'm just getting excited about WELA here. Are there any questions, or shall I just sort
I
of...
think just keep going at the moment. Julie.
Okay, let me know if there's anything you want me to expand on. So
do you have children? Is there a lower, what's the lowest age you can go on a course with?
So that's just been something that's been asked about. So can you come on the course with your children? I think they're still trying to work out how that works, because it's a fairly
not
intense...
with your children. Not with your children, but what's the youngest age you can do a course? Do you have to be over 18, or can you have teenagers?
Yes, currently it's over 18, but that has been a question that's been raised.
Right.
Is it you know, open to teenagers? And I think that's a discussion the program committee are having right at the moment. So I think that's pretty exciting, because I've worked with the Strike for Climate group, and you know, they're phenomenal. Manjot Kaur and all of those young women, they're just incredible. So I think they would have a lot to teach us, and certainly they would benefit from the networking and the mentoring.
I'll just interrupt you for a second. We've also had the Student Strike for Climate talk to us and been a bit involved with them. And yeah, we totally agree. They are amazing young people.
They're brilliant.
Yeah, I've stood in Sydney at the rallies, and been on the stage with them, and I just think, you know, I refuse to think we can't get where we need to go. Yes, there's going to be some issues, but with the young women stepping up, we will get where we need to go, and it will be good. Yeah, so that's a very, very current discussion that's happening there. And the other thing that's really powerful is that you don't just leave the program and off you go. There's a mentor role and a mentorship role. So everybody thinks about who they would like as a mentor, and that continues. Do you want me to give you a bit of background as to why I'm there? Would that be helpful? So, okay, as a 18-year-old, I decided life.
No.
Worked in London for a while, had 3 children, and we've lived in Gloucester for 35 years, and it's a very conservative National Party electorate. I've loved it here. It's had lots of challenges. Our children have had wonderful childhoods here, grew up, went to the local public school, public high school, but always aware of the injustice and the social inequity. And so somebody said, have a go at, you know, running for council, which I thought would be fun. I got elected. I spent 3 years in tears because I was the second only other female. There were 2 of us, and the other female councillor was staunchly National Party, and they all saw me as a Green, or because I was an environmentalist. I'd started the Gloucester Environment Group in 1989 because I was concerned about climate change with a friend. And we went to the local newspaper and said, we'd like to start an environment group about climate change. He looked at me and said, everybody will think you're mad, but I reserve your right to put that in the paper. We put it in the paper, 50 people turned up, and that group still continues today with 400 members in Gloucester, doing lots of koala issues and lots of climate issues, etc. So I guess I kind of have been deeply concerned about climate since the 80s. And my family worked in the insurance industry, Lloyd's of London, in the 70s, where they were saying climate change is going to cause devastation and the insurance industry probably won't exist, you know, past that. So they've all known for a long time, as you all know. Local government was incredibly interesting, and I feel very lucky to have been a councillor for 17 years. I was mayor for 2 and chair of Hunter councils briefly because the men on council didn't like my outspokenness with the climate change issues, and because we got a climate policy in 2007. They didn't like that, and so yeah, so it was a bit of a battle all along, but I learned a lot to stand in other people's shoes and see it from their position rather than fight them, because that wasn't working. We need so many women in local government. You know, there was one woman at a conference that I met who the men didn't speak to her at all. She was the only female in a out west New South Wales council, and the men refused to speak to her, told her she didn't belong there, she belonged in the kitchen. And this was in 2010. So we're still, rurally, we're still battling the patriarchy. I lost the mayoral role due to my outspokenness about the coal industry and the coal seam gas industry, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I realised that I'd learned as much as I needed to do, and now I was going to become an activist. And that's what happened. And Groundswell Gloucester, we worked with the EDO and 32 other organisations to beat both of those. They lost AGL lost $1.2 billion on the coal seam gas field mess that they created here. And Andy Vesey was actually pretty good. He actually helped us shut that down, and then they got rid of him, the most intelligent person in AGL, and I think they're suffering from that. And when we did the Rocky Hill fight, we actually won, and in February 2019, Judge Preston also apart from refusing the mine on social impacts grounds, which was really powerful, a lot of First Nations representation within that judgment, huge amount, which was also a bit of a first. He also refused it on climate grounds due to Scope 3 emissions being, burnt offshore downstream. And that was one of the most significant climate judgments at the time that went internationally through all the media. The Minerals Council of New South Wales tried to get that rescinded through New South Wales Parliament. That led to a territorial limits bill, which quite a lot of us fronted up to Parliament House to present our case for why they should not change that judgment, and we won that as well. So it's the war is still there, but you just got to keep winning those games along the way. And when we'd won that, I was doing the Sustainable Futures work. I'm on a social impacts working group and also working with the Next Economy. I do some consulting with them. Amanda Carl, who's just, she's groundbreaking work from the Next Economy. They produced a report that's been taken very seriously on the circular economy and transitioning communities away from coal and coal seam gas and fossil fuels. That's brilliant work if you want to look that up. And Victoria rang me and said, I was on the Sunrise Project Board for 5 years, and that's the major re-granting organisation for all organisations, mainly NGOs, but a lot of grassroots organisations working in the climate space. I left there because I wanted to get back to more grassroots work, and Victoria rang me and said, hey, would you like to come and work with us and be chair of the interim board? And this is my happy place. WELA is my happy place. And so that's where I am now, and that's the story.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Julie, that is just amazing to have the resilience to go through all of those steps on your journey is amazing. How do you feel about Mike Cannon-Brookes with AGL?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think what's happening now is, especially with the younger generation who've got the cash and the sense that they can actually affect change, they're just going for it. And I think it's really important that he's getting in there, because he knows climate change is such a huge issue. He's got to just steamroller his way in there, and that's great. It's so many different levels of affecting change, and there are so many. I get really uplifted by not just the Mike Cannon-Brookes, but the young woman I met in the street yesterday that said, oh, I've got this great idea for reducing plastics in town. Do you think Gloucester Transitions would want to be part of it? And I think that's just as exciting. And I just feel this sense of hope that we will get there. And I just have to tell you about this. This is a book called 9 Lives for Our Planet. It's just being launched. John Watts is a local author who wrote the book. He also wrote The Town That Said No to AGL, and now it detailed the fight that we had and what happens to communities when you stand up to protect your places, and how smashed we all get with that, but you actually learn and grow more resilient. And that's, yeah. But this one is actually about 9 women, and Simone Marsh is the first woman in the book. Sue Higginson has just become a member of the New South Wales Legislative Council. She's a Greens member, but Simone Marsh was a whistleblower in Queensland who worked for the Queensland State Government, and it was in the department where they assessed the coal seam gas applications. She knew things were terrible and environments were being ruined, and as a climate issue, this was not the way to go. She was bullied and harassed to the point that she had a breakdown. It's all in the book. She was then taken to the fixated persons unit, which is a shocking thing. She survived all of that to tell the story. The first chapter will leave you so angry and inspired about Simone. She now lives in Tasmania. She works closely with Bob Brown. She is also a journalist now with Michael West Media, who is, you know, fantastic journalist exposing what's going on around Australia. There's also a woman, Dominique Jacobs from Gloucester, and why she's a foster mother of 5 children, a Bernardo's Mother of the Year runner-up. Why did she get involved and get arrested recently on top of a van blocking the road in Sydney? So it's a phenomenal book. And somebody said, oh, what's a pale, stale male writing a book like that for? And my comment was, because he's written it. It's fantastic. He's written it. Nobody else has written it. He's written it. So isn't it great? And Meredith Bergman has given the former president of the New South Wales Legislative Council, Meredith has given a forward in the book. Bob Brown has also written something, and I've put something there as chair of WELA on the back. But this is dynamite. And also Simone Marsh's story was picked up by Four Corners a few years ago. And I think once this book is read, there'll be questions asked, deeper questions asked. So it's, yeah, I think women, their leadership and stepping up and starting to really take power in the right way is exploding, especially with the recent elections.
Wow. That's brilliant. We'll put we'll put the book on the website so as people can get links to where it is. So I think it sounds like one is definitely going on my read list.
Yeah.
Superb. Did anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Julie? I mean, I'd like to personally spend 3 days with her, you know.
I'm happy to chat anytime. Yeah.
which is brilliant. Suzanne, you're on mute, Suzanne. You're on mute, Suzanne.
With all the talk about gas at the moment, and our dear gas company saying, well, the answer really is to let us, you know, do more gas. What does the community do now? Just, you know, can our politicians, you know, control the gas companies and say, no, you know, that's not going to work. We need to go more renewables, not more gas.
Yeah, look, you know, we've met with Matt Keane, who's now the Treasurer of New South Wales, when he was the Environment Minister, and they know that gas is not the answer. The industry, the Minerals Council, is so powerful. They are an incredibly powerful organisation. Smear campaigns they run against communities, etc. But Bruce Robertson, who is with the Australia Institute, so if you follow the Australia Institute's discussions on the gas industry, that's where you'll get the key facts and everything. IEFA, also International Energy, Tim Buckley, he talks mainly on coal, Bruce talks mainly on the gas. But the whole thing is now that there is a lot of gas, it's just all committed to offshore, it's all committed to overseas. And all the contracts, etc., were set up that way, whereas not with WA. WA set up a domestic reservation policy. The whole thing sheets back to embedded poor politics, but also one of the things we've really become so aware of, and it sounds like so simple, but especially with the coal seam gas fight and then Rocky Hill, is that the Minerals Council have embedded people within state government departments, and then they influence the politicians to make sure that these industries go ahead. And we've exposed that. We've exposed that in both books, the Town That Said No to AGL and this one. And in fact, what we do and what I do is when we do a lot of advocacy with politicians in Canberra and New South Wales, working with other women in this space, like Dr. Anne Polina in WA. She's an elder, and we actually take our documents. So we make sure that we've got scientific documents developed by the community and others who want to help. And I go to the chief of the EPA in New South Wales and I say, you know, if this coal seam gas field goes ahead, here is a document that you cannot refute. It's completely referenced. It's full of scientific facts. This is what's going to happen if you frack here. This is what's going to happen here, and to 70,000 people downstream in the Manning catchment. I hold you personally and morally culpable for what you're going to do. You can't speak to me like that. I said, yes, I can. I pay your wage through my taxes. I will speak to you politely and considered. You cannot refute this document, and you are morally and ethically culpable in your role if you don't take notice of this document. They don't cope. They don't cope. So I do speak to a lot of organisations. I went to Victoria to speak to the group that was trying to stop the AGL gas terminal from coming there in that beautiful Ramsar wetlands area. And they had all this expertise and knowledge. It was just, they were fabulous, but no one had produced any documents. And I said, without your documents, you can go and talk to people and media and say you don't want this to happen, but you've got to have your facts, and you've got to have why it shouldn't happen and what you think should be done instead of this.
Yeah, it's great advice.
That's great.
Yeah, and so with the Next Economy, I've been to Toowoomba and a couple of places with Amanda and their group to say, not only did we not have that industry, we've actually grown without it, and this is why we've grown. These are where the jobs are coming from. This is where our community is now benefiting from not having that fossil fuel, because it's all based on jobs, economy. So when you can show that due to renewables, transition, and what happens when you actually don't have these destructive practices and companies in your place, that's the story you've really got to tell, not why you don't want it, because of,
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, really important stuff to know.
Very wise. Julie, that's we've really appreciated your time today, and you've given us some really good points to consider. You know, getting the facts is one of the first steps of our framework for action, so it was really good to see that being reinforced. And also your determination and persistence is just to be admired, and I think I can see us working far more closely with WELA in the future, because I think we've got so many things that are aligning between our two missions. So I think that's fantastic.
Julie, if you've got time to stay on for a bit, we'll talk about the Women Taking Climate Action Award.
I'd love to. I'd love to hear about that. And conversely, if you need any more, So my story is just one of hundreds out there. And WELA's really fostering that. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And now I'm going to hand over to Suzanne to talk about the Melbourne on Yarra award. I'll come off screen share, Sue, and it's over to you.
Thank you. So the Women Taking Climate Action Award for 2022 is now open, and it closes on August the 26th. So the idea of the award is it's a recognition award, it's a $1,000 award, is to recognise a woman who is basically involved in climate change action, that engages with women and contributes to global efforts towards climate change, innovation and mitigation. So they could be working in quite a number of different areas, but basically mitigation, adaptation, communication, advocacy, service would be areas that they could come from. So the idea is that the person who applies describes basically how their action work or project contributes to global efforts towards climate action. They try to demonstrate innovation, advocacy or communication and service action. And then they write another 500 words on how their project engages with women, how it sort of supports women or what women are involved in it. And then they give a bit of a general overview of the last few years for whatever organisation or work that they're doing. So last year we had applications from throughout District 23. So we had applications from Western Australia, South Australia, and Margaret Hender was the winner last year, who is actually helping communities do renewable energy projects, providing some funding that sort of keeps ongoing when it's repaid. So she was rather fantastic find. And we had applications from Tasmania. We had an application from somebody doing a leadership course at WELA. We had applications from Victoria, and they were all really good applications. So it's quite difficult when you get down to that point to make decisions. But one of the things that has come out of last year is that we have made lots of really important connections with people. So even people who applied who didn't win the award have now become a part of our resources, and we are part of their resources. And I think that's a really important thing about the award. I mean, the other thing is that we're just finding out, as Julie said, how many incredibly fantastic women there are out there in this space. So Carol, I think, has been forwarded the award, and I think Carol's forwarding it to other people. Yeah. So if you could take it to your clubs, or not just even your clubs, people that you know who might be interested, it would be great to have as many people apply as possible, and it widens obviously our knowledge of that world too. So the other thing about the award is that I asked Sandra Burns to take it to District 23 to see if we could get it made a District 23 award rather than a single club award. And the basis of that was that if every club provided at least $30 for the year, we would actually be able to fund the award ongoing at $1,000. Sandra, at the moment, that has gone out to clubs as an option. Sandra is following that up, and most clubs are quite happy, it seems, about that, and have offered at least $50. So hopefully that will be an ongoing source of funding, and the Zonta Club of Melbourne on Yarra will look after those funds, and we will know hopefully in advance of the award each year how much money we've got, and we can sort of tailor it to that much money. So I think it's a great thing for us to have and do. So please get the word out there to get some people applying. And if they do have any issues or anything they want to talk about, please put them on to me. I'm very happy to talk to people and help them.
That's great, Suzanne. That's it's a wonderful initiative, and we had Alana Mountain was a speaker, was one of the applicants, and she just inspired us immensely with her talk about Christmas time. So so that's really good to see. And did anyone have any questions for Sue about the award? No? Okay, that's fine. Well,
I'll just say, Julie, I mean, I'm sure the leadership team in WELA could each apply for it as well as the applicants.